Knees and toes.
The shoulders have to do with anything?
Because of what you did to my bold prediction. Yes, I'm taking this too far, but I don't care. We're
The
going.
noise is great for those who are audio only.
What's up, everyone, and welcome into a special edition of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Today we have the reporter for TSN and the Toronto Rock, Ashley Docking. Ashley, thanks for jumping on with us, and how's it going?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me. Finally.
Yeah.
Finally. It's about time.
I think I've had just about everybody from TSN now since I got you now.
You're collecting us, like, what are those, the Thanos stones?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say Pokemon, so yeah, that's,
Both.
I guess that dates my age too. But we'll jump right into it. We got you on for the Rock because Buffalo finishes off their doubleheader with Toronto and Hamilton on Saturday night. What is one word to describe the Rock season 10 games in so far?
I think it would be competitive, composure, something with a C. It's a team that decided to kind of go all in on making a new identity last year. And with that comes a lot of uncertainty. I mean, I think from Jamie Dawick's perspective, you think you know what you have, you hope you have what you think you have. It's just a matter of if it plays out, and it's a team that made a ton of changes. So I think that the fact that they're able to compete and be competitive, and they're quite frankly turning into something a little bit scary here, PK, that I think that would be the word that I would use. Cohesive.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to transition to this one because last year clearly did not go the Rock's way. I mean, they started 0-5, they finished the season 6-12, but I think Jamie Dawick was able to do something and likely set a new standard across the league when it comes to deadline deals. He was able to ship multiple UFAs out the door and turn this team into what was a rebuilding team to kind of a contender now with the first 3 picks in the last draft. Are you surprised on how quickly it seems this team has turned things around when some franchises around the league take years to do what they just did in one offseason?
So I think there's it's a kind of a fallacy that when you get people who are talented or people who want the ball in their sticks all in the same team, I think one of the biggest examples of that is like Olympic level basketball, men's and women's. You have the most highly talented players. You're like, well, everyone wants to the rock, everyone wants to touch, everyone wants to shoot. And it's like, as long as everybody's pulling in the same direction, it actually doesn't matter. Maybe there might be some long-term frustration, but guess what fixes that? Winning. And so when you have all these young, talented players that are coming onto this team, you get Mark Matthews back from his shoulder surgery. You have the Bushi and Dawick combo that started clicking last year on the right side, and you put that all together, and it's all players who are pulling in the same direction with leadership that they trust. I don't think people should be surprised. And 2PK, like one of the biggest things that I was talking to Pat Coyle about last week, because I did the Colorado-Toronto game, we were kind of riffing about how you always hope that like a top 3-5 pick is going to come in and be exactly what you think they are. And that's really been the fact of the matter in the last few years in the NLL. So it's not really a crapshoot when you get these guys high in the draft. You pretty much know what you're going to get.
We will start out the front gate. Early this season, it seemed like the offense was being carried by those rookies in Owen Hiltz and CJ Kirst. But, the last few games, the production from the veterans has come on. And I know this team was 1-2 to start the season early on. And, while the wins weren't there, how encouraging was it to see that the rookies were the ones that were leading the way when it usually takes young guys weeks or even months to get accustomed to the pro box game?
Yeah, I think it was fun to watch first and foremost. Like, I know everyone's super high on CJ Kirst. I know Owen Hiltz, like everyone's like, is he as advertised? He's a bit of a smaller guy, so can he manage around like kind of some of the big dogs in the league, which I think he's proven that he has that wicked outside shot, just like peeling around the inside sidearm sniping. But Sam English in particular, and I've been talking to him about him, to the likes of like Pat Gregoire every single chance I get. I'm just like, he is so dynamic out the back. And I know you said the front door, so I apologize for taking it in a little different direction, but he's somebody who's just impressed in so many ways. And, you know, someone like CJ Kurse, for example, he gets the ball late in the game, their last game. He's responsible for breaking a double, keeping possession, trying to go down and score on an empty net. And these are positions that the coaching staff are comfortable putting him in. So they're executing at a high level. When they're making mistakes, they're not making the same mistake that many times. And they're also electric on offense.
Two guys that seem to have taken a back seat to these rookies are Josh Dowick and Chris Bushi, both currently on pace to put up about half of what they did last year. Is it really as simple as more mouths to feed on this offense, or do you maybe see something in their game that might have dropped off from the production last year?
I think it's easy to kind of say that, but like just pulling it up now, it's like Josh has scored in 4 of the last 5 games. 2 of those games have been multiple goal games. You know, Chris had a 5-goal game 4 games ago, 2-1 at the end of the last game. He didn't have any goals, but he had 3 assists against Colorado. And I think it's not a necessity for them to just like play over their heads anymore. Last year, you mentioned it, like Toronto was in such a tough spot. And I just remember talking to Challen at the end of the year, like, how do you kind of just, you know, finish with a sense of pride, you know, end this on a high note where when you can, because really nothing went according to plan. And, you know, they were some of the bright spots of the season that Toronto would like to forget and hopefully they've moved on from. So I don't think that anything necessarily in particular happened between them, that they fell off or that they lost that chemistry. It's just not a necessary evil that they score 7 points each a night to get to where they are because they have so many weapons. And it's like once the rookies are found out a little bit by the defenses and when they develop their counter moves and then the counter to the counter, maybe that's when Chris and Josh get a chance to pop off. And, you know, when everyone's like, okay, enough, these guys are doing too much, you sneak it over to the rookies who are wily and always willing to pull trigger. And now they get a chance. And so I think it's actually quite a nice dynamic with Mark Matthews and sometimes Challen Rogers, like kind of facilitating that for everybody.
Yeah, it's a blessing that they have more guys now. So them maybe not putting up the numbers that they did last year might not, you know, be the worst thing because when their numbers called, you know that they're able to do it.
And they do it in different ways too. I think that's the thing. Like, and you know this, your offense, even if you're talented, if you have too many of the same player, it can get really stale. It can get very predictable. And so you have someone like Josh who can periodically snipe from distance. And then you have someone like Chris who's going to get messy and get in the dirty areas. And you have someone like Owen who's going to sweep around the top. Mark Matthews, I don't know if you watched their game against Colorado, looking spry as hell, nimble as all hell, dancing in and around the goal. So, you know, they offer a little bit of everything, which I think makes it a challenge for defenses.
Jalen Rogers is playing pretty much full-time out the front door this year. He's 3rd on the team in points with 37. Do you believe this might just be a one-year thing, or do you see a world where the captain is a full-time O guy moving forward with the Rock?
I feel like this is a hill, Matt Sawyer, with all due respect, Matt Sawyer is going to die on this hill. He has been wanting to see Challen Rogers full send out the front gate for at least the last 2 to 3 years. It's something that they've been tinkering with. At first they had him, obviously he was defense transition player, you know, of the year, perennial candidate. And then they're like, oh, you stay and play. Okay, let's try a few games, matchup dependent. And now that they feel like they have a solidified defense outside of Challen, they want him out the front door. And, you know, one of the things that I've been talking to Dan Dawson about, even when he was Challen's teammate, is like they want him to be a little bit meaner. And they feel like once he gets a little bit of that edge, and he's just like a nice, sweet West Coast kid who's just always like, hey guys, like da 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 da. But I think this year we're actually seeing flashes of it. He's had some big body goals, quite frankly, where he's like getting choked and strangled and pulled and prodded, and he's going to the net and he's dashing defenders aside and he's finishing. So I don't see why that would deter Matt Sawyer and the coaching staff from keeping him there. If anything, they're like, see, Ashley, we told you. Because I'm like, he's just so good out the back door. Like, and they're like, no, look what he's doing now.
Yeah, it sounds like Toronto's got their own case of Ian McKay, where I have to fully admit, before last season, I was
Yeah.
saying it was a dumb decision to do it. He brings too much talent out the front end, and then he puts up, what, 35, 40 goals, and I look like an idiot with egg on my face. So, yeah, it sounds like Toronto's got the same case
Mr.
about
Friday
you.
Night.
Oh,
We
yeah.
were talking with Ian 2 weeks ago because we had another Buffalo game, and he's like, last year he popped off. He had like 3, 4, 5 goals every time it was a TSN game. So we're like, oh my gosh, like I don't even think we can call this an experiment anymore either. And that's kind of the beauty of where lacrosse is right now, PK, is that there are so many talented players, that they are so dynamic and they have such a diverse skill set, that when you're like the top 5, 10% of guys in the league, you literally can do it all in some cases. And it's kind of a nice place to be.
A change that I don't think is getting enough attention, at least around here, is Dan Dawson being behind the bench and brought in to coach the offense. I mean, you kind of see his fingerprints all over this team this year. How big is it for the young guys in Kirst and in Hiltz to be able to learn from a guy, not just, him behind the bench, but in practice and being able to call him with questions or anything, to be able to have conversations like that with one of the best to ever do it?
I think that's exactly how Dan Dawson would want it, first of all, under the radar, where you're like, it's not being talked about enough. Like, I think that in a way is by design a little bit. He comes into that team, being around them for so long. He replaces Rusty Kruger, which was not an easy thing to do. We know lacrosse is a very tight-knit community. We know how close the Rock staff is. We know the Orangeville ties. So even that move in of itself was a big deal and was not easily come by. So Dan steps in. I don't think he wants it to be like he's overshadowing or upstaging what Rusty was able to do in conjunction with Matt Sawyer. So he's kind of just sitting back and letting the players talk for him. To answer your question though, Dan's funny because you'll ask every single person and like, oh, Dan's my best friend. Every player, Dan's my best friend. Dan's my best friend. And it's like, but who's his best friend? Because he just makes you feel like, he makes you feel like you're one of one. He makes you feel like you're capable of anything. And that's part of his gift. And that's why so many people are drawn to him. So anytime you talk to any of the guys, they call out Dan Dawson for his ability to teach and talk to them and advise them. So I really couldn't think of a better role model for these young kids, to answer your question. And I think we'll see it in the growth, not only that we've seen so far, but I'm always interested in the year 1 to 2 jump.
Last one in terms of the offense. Who to you is an
Okay.
X factor on this offense this season that maybe it's somebody that you need to step up, or maybe it's somebody that does the dirty work to free up the goal scorers?
Okay, so I don't know if this is like a sneaky choice. Mark Matthews. I feel like we're not talking about him a lot. I feel like it's, you have Bushi and Josh and Challen and like, okay, what's that dynamic going to be? And then you have Owen and you have CJ, and then Mark's just like there being like, hey, by the way, like I'm one of the
Still
best
good.
to ever
Yeah.
do it. I now have a new constructed shoulder. I'm back in the game. He can pass, he can shoot, he can score, he can create space, he can draw attention. He does a little bit of everything, and he doesn't do it necessarily with like blinding speed. He kind of does it with an Oklahoma drawl. Does that make sense?
It does.
Where
It
you're
does.
like, oh, something about this is hitting and I don't know what it is. And it's like, yeah, it's Mark Matthews. And so I think if he stays on point, that it opens up so much for everybody else.
So I believe I heard an interview when you were on OTCB with Teddy and Pat a while back talking about playing flag football. So I got to ask, how did you get into it, and what are your thoughts on it going to the Olympics in 2028?
I'm so amped. Like I can't even. Okay, so the tea is that I never really had like my eye on broadcasting coming out of school. It wasn't. I know there's a lot of people that are like, I'm going to be a sports broadcaster. It's something that they wanted since they were young, and I think it's honestly like a gift to have that direction in your life and have something to pursue from a younger age. That wasn't my case, but since I heard the Olympics were going to be featuring flag football and lacrosse sixes, I was like, okay, I'm going to be there. I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know in what capacity, but I'm going to be calling those football games. Hopefully on the lacrosse broadcast, it would be so cool to do double duty. But my mom played. Honestly, that's like the short answer is that she played football when I was growing up. We would go to the field as a family to watch her. She was on Team Canada. She won a world championship. So yeah, it was really easy for me to be like, I want to do that.
Very fair. So we'll flip to the defensive side of the ball for Toronto now. A guy that I think has taken his game to another level is Phil Mazuka. I mean, the guy is leading the team in block shots. He's leading the team in loose balls, third in caused turnovers. What have you seen from him this year in likely will be his best season in his 5-year career?
Yeah, he's definitely hit a new level, hasn't he? I remember Pat called him on one broadcast, Kirkland Challen Rogers in his first year, Kirkland Brand Challen, because at the time he had the long hair, he was playing aggressive defense, he was scoring. I swear to God, this kid was like 10 for 10 in transition, his first 10 opportunities when he came into the league. What's changed with Phil is that he got a little bit more locked in when the crowd in front of him was moved out, quite frankly. So there was Brad Cree, who was in and out of the lineup because of work. Chris Corbeil was traded, as you mentioned. Mitch DeSnew was traded, as you mentioned. And Phil saw an opportunity. And he said, okay, cool. Like, obviously, he wants to play lacrosse, his dream to play in the NLL. But now he sees a clear and direct pathway. And he's like, okay, I'm going to lock in because this is an opportunity that I don't want to give up. And once those guys were gone, and he was very clear, he's not like cheering that he lost his teammates, but like, quite frankly, as a competitor, you're like, okay, cool, next man up, it's me. And so he was like, if they do come back, because at the time we didn't know, the large assumption was that Nick Rose was going to return from Calgary. You didn't really know what Chris was going to do. You didn't know what Mitch was going to do. He's like, if they come back, I really want to make it tough for the coaches, essentially. And he did. And I think it's just been the consistency, right? Like the old adage in lacrosse is if we don't talk about you, you're doing a good job. I think the gold standard for that, and you'll know this well, is Justin Martin on the Buffalo Bandits. Yep. And I think they're feeling that a little bit this year. And just the players have said that as well. Yeah, like every player that we've talked to has said that in no uncertain terms. And it's not somebody that was flashy. It's not somebody that was, making a ton of plays, wasn't making a ton of big hits. He was doing like the sneaky good things. He was being consistent and he was being reliable. And I think we're seeing that from Phil Mazuka, and that's the calling card of a defender who's going to be in the league for a long time.
There were a ton of whispers last year leading up to the trade deadline and even this summer about Brad Cree and where he might end up. But the deadline came and went, and this summer he inked a new 2-year deal with the team. Now, with the losses of Mitch DeSnew and Chris Corbeil, like you mentioned last year, that did not return, how massive was it to get back Brad Cree in this system and be a veteran piece on that back end?
I try really hard not to be biased when I talk about Toronto, just for my role as a TSN reporter as well. But I am around them a lot, whether it's in my capacity as the sideline reporter for the Toronto Rock, or they've been featured obviously quite prominently in the last few years of the TSN deal. And they all kind of cannibalize attention from each other, from Challen to Latrell to now Phil to, even Billy Ostrowzer. Like he's going to fight somebody. Like what kind of play is he about to make? And I think no one is penalized by that more than Brad Cree. He's an assistant captain on this team for a reason. He's been good for a very long time. Even when it comes to award voting, I feel like that's something that it hurts him as well, is like he gets the other guys steal the votes from him. And it's not that it's not valid to vote for other people on the team, but he's just been somebody who's been so solid from the jump for them. He's a leader. And so to have him back, I think it just anchors them a little bit more, because he does have that nice balance of like knowing when to be calm, but he also does get fired up. And I think he does it in a way where he's not hurting the team when he does it, which obviously is something that teams want to avoid.
So a player that we mentioned.
Why are you laughing?
No, I agree. I'm just dawning in where you said like he knows when to turn it on. It's because the Colorado game where off the screen, all you just hear, oh, now they toss Brad Cree. I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense when it's like a 20-6 game or something like that. So yeah, you saying he knows when to turn it on, that makes sense. But
Well, and also I was referring to too, like, I think discipline is so important. It's a theme that the Bandits have talked about wanting to shore
yeah,
up. It's something that we've seen in Halifax over the years as
yeah.
well, where it's like, listen, we like when you're fiery and we like when you mix it up. Quite frankly, it's a part of lacrosse. How quickly can I get under your skin and will you allow me to do that? But time and score.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But a player that we kind of mentioned briefly earlier is Sam English, and he's a freak. That's the whole sentence. I mean, while he isn't,
Non-derogatory.
yeah, while he isn't putting up the ungodly numbers and the stat lines that he was early in the season, I mean, he's likely their most dangerous guy in transition. And personally, I think this change is happening across the league, and I think we've been seeing it for a couple of years, is every team is coveting those super athletic guys that can push transition. And Sam English is pretty much that next wave of players like that. Could he end up being, and I know CJ Kirst and Owen Hiltz are great, but in a few years, maybe 5 years down the road, could he be the most important and valuable rookie on this team?
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say no. I mean, I think that he will probably get passed over for Rookie of the Year because of the aforementioned CJ Kirst, to be honest with you. I think it's always easier to give attention to goals and highlights. And that's not to say that CJ's not deserving of it or won't be deserving of it. It's just something that we've seen a trend of, right? Anytime there's awards voting, it's out, okay, who scores the most? There's 3 stars of the game. Okay, who has the most points? Like, it's the easy metric to say, hey, that's just the numbers. And so there's not necessarily a debate that has to occur over it. But again, versatility. Sam is very fast. He can play defense. I think he probably wants to get a little bit more tactical and technical in transition, but he doesn't mind to stay and play, obviously. He just wants to be wherever the team wants him. And that, again, is super valuable. Of course, we've seen people come in and be specialists in various situations, face-offs, whatever. You don't necessarily need someone to be taking face-offs for you, but that's not the case for every team. TD Erling goes down for Toronto. He's not with them anymore. Okay, who's taking face-offs? Okay, Sam's done some. Jubenville's done some. Like, they've rotated through. Okay, he's willing to do that. I know Brad used to do it. It wasn't really his favorite thing, but he's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to be a utility man. So I think it's not out of the realm of possibility if you look at the archetype of Challen Rogers and his transition from defender to ultimate transition player to offensive, working towards juggernaut,
Right.
let's say. I think Sam kind of fits that archetype, and we've seen Toronto utilize it in a positive way.
Early this season, and I think it was either game 2 or game 3, the Rock went with Halichuk to start the game and then put Rose in the
Against
second
Vegas.
half. Yeah, and I believe I remember hearing the reasoning was they wanted to get Troy some time. Now, the numbers support Nick Rose, but the wins support Troy Holichuk. Is there a goalie controversy when Nick Rose comes back? Because I saw he was questionable. I'm assuming they want him back for the Buffalo game. But is it just Rose's net when he comes back healthy?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, Nick Rose is a goaltender of the year. So, like, who's going to question that? And again, you said the numbers mention it. I will say people talk about ghosts against Buffalo and how that might have, I don't want to say tarnished his legacy because he's still been exceptional, but it's a hump that Toronto really has not yet gotten over at times when it mattered the most. But I feel like, and you can check my math on this if you want to, I feel like in those games, Nick's against Buffalo, Nick's numbers have been better than Matt Vince's numbers. It's just been volume and opportunity and like
That's fair,
timeliness of Buffalo's goals that have gotten the better of them. Of course, there's some shellacking outliers. Listen, I'm not being like every single game was a tight one, but there have been moments where Toronto has taken the L. Nick's numbers have been better. It's just been a volume situation. So anyway, to answer your question, it's not a goalie controversy. Nick is the goalie. That Vegas game, I mean, I think it was a little bit twofold. I talked to Brendan Miller about that. And he said they wanted to reward Troy for, his commitment, dedication, and for stepping in for Nick last season when they traded him to Calgary. He said that he felt like Vegas was a good matchup for Troy. It didn't really work out that way. But they just wanted to give him an opportunity. And honestly, quite frankly, I think from a competition standpoint, it's good to not be complacent, no matter who you are. And I think that there was a little sprinkle of that involved too.
Okay, perfect. Because I thought I was going crazy when I was hearing so many people just going like, Nick Rose is washed and they want Troy Holochuk. And I'm like, am I watching a different sport than everybody else's? I thought it was Nick Rose's net for good. And why would he sign back there for 2 years if he's not going to be the guy? So I'm glad you put that at ease and I wasn't going absolutely insane because I thought I might have been.
No, no. Nick is the goalie for Toronto unless something else changes. But again, like I think the thing with Nick is that when he's making big stops, you're like, whoa, like that was sick, because he has a penchant for making big stops, big acrobatic stops in big moments. But I think when he lets in a bad goal, it sticks with people anymore, or even more, excuse me, because of the way that he plays his angles. So he's set up. This is his read. And then if he gets fooled or something doesn't work out, it looks bad because people are like, oh, he didn't even move. It's like, yeah, well, it's not really his style. Like from an outside shot standpoint, he's getting shots where he wants them to, and then he's, setting up for where he thinks they're going to be playing the angles. And so I think that that's something that's difficult to resonate with people because you're used to being like, try with everything in your soul to stop that ball. And so I think that that's part of why people have a problem, quite frankly, like with him and the accolades that he gets.
You do play-by-play for the Raptors 905 and the Northern Super League. Do you prefer being the play-by-play person or the reporter person for the games? Because both tell stories, but in different ways.
I don't even know. Honestly, I think a little bit of both. It's nice to be involved in more long form stuff. I think from like a female in sport perspective, a lot of times we are put on the sideline or put in as hosts, and those jobs are super valid and super valuable. But the reality of the situation is you're setting someone else up to look really smart and putting them in a position to be successful, and that's how you do a good job. Or you're telling a story about somebody else. And so it's nice to be able to have moments where you get to have an opinion, where you get to have an observation, and you get to flex your sports acumen, because most reporters that I know do have that as well. And so I think that's nice to just feel like you're, from a play-by-play perspective, you're more a part of the conversation instead of chiming in and be like, hey, quick thought. Okay, back to you guys. Which again, super valid, and if done right, can really impact the game storytelling in a positive way. So they're just really different.
The Rock and the Bandits square off Saturday night in Hamilton. Bandits are coming off a game the night before versus the Rush.
I know, we're doing that one too.
Yeah, I'll be in the box for both of these games. In their only matchup of the year, which is still shocking because when we started this podcast, it was like 6 or 7 times a game or a year you would face off. What sort of game are you expecting to see when we witness this game out in Hamilton?
Oh my gosh. I really think that's going to be predicated on how Buffalo does on Friday night. And not even from an exhaustion, a tired POV. I think anytime you get Toronto, Buffalo, they don't like each other, first and foremost. So there's going to be animosity. There's going to be maybe even fireworks. Everyone remembers what happened with Gash. Billy's always trying to get into it. Mitch DeSnew doesn't shy away from being confrontational. He's playing his old team. There's always opportunities for a scuffle with these groups, but it's a really precarious time for the Bandits right now, as you very well know. And while Steve Dietrich is not sitting there being like, I'm selling we're open for business, he's also not. And if they fall to Sask and then they have to play Toronto, I just think it's at a certain point, like you get down on yourself, no matter how confident you are in your personal capabilities and no matter how talented you are. And I think it's fair to say Buffalo is talented. Like that's not the question here. It's just what are these ingredients kind of cooking up for us right now? Because there has been it's been a little lackluster so far. And they know that too. They're working on the formula, but time is running out.
Yeah, yeah. I think when me and Phil were talking about the doubleheader coming up, we pretty much said, if they go 0 and 2, it's sell mode. If they go 2 and 0, it's buy mode, and if they go 1 and 1, they pretty much save their season. So I fully agree. It kind of comes down to if they lose versus Skask,
Yeah.
it's win or your season's probably done on Saturday
If
night.
they go 4-8, that's tough.
Yeah,
If they go
yeah,
4-8, that's the same amount of losses as Calgary, Philly, and Oshawa.
yeah.
And those are the three teams at the bottom. Like we don't need to rub it in, but like that's not where you're used to seeing them. And also I would say like their schedule
Yeah.
is cutthroat. So like if they don't at least go 1 and 1, then they go Colorado, San Diego, Sask again, Vancouver before then they play Rochester, and then
Yeah.
they end a brief reprieve with Oshawa. And like those scrappy teams that haven't really done anything all season or have gone below expectations, they're always good for one upset win at the end of the year too. So it's like they haven't done themselves any favors. And again, like they're playing a team that they beat in the finals. They're playing an arch rival. Like I think this might be the most important Buffalo Bandits weekend in the regular season in some time.
Yeah, but we keep saying that Philly loss is probably going to come back to haunt them, but that's a different story.
You know what though? Colorado lost to Philly too, so
That's true. That's true.
There's no people
yeah.
be losing to Philly.
What area of Toronto's game do you think that they have the clear edge over the Bandits in?
I think right now it's their offense to a degree. And I don't even think that I'm saying like talent for talent, dollar for dollar. Like you have Dane Smith, you have Josh Byrne, you have Ian McKay, as we talked about, Kyle Buchanan's always good for some sneaky goals. Dehoga Nanakoke is always good for some one-handed bullish play.
Yeah.
Like they have guys. It's just right now there seems to be a little bit of some gaps in like the role players. Like who are the ones who are filling the gaps? Who are the ones that are going to be good for like that surprise goal or that surprise run? And I think that they're missing a little bit of that. Talking to Ian McKay, he had some really good insight about like, integrating Scanlon, for example. He's like, Josh and I can't be going in practice and only running drills with the two of us. It's like, we know how to play together. We have that chemistry. We've known each other for ages. Like there has to be some of that integration and trust, quite frankly. But trust takes time to build, and Buffalo doesn't have time, as we already established. So they're just between a rock and a hard place, and they either will or they won't. And honestly though, if anyone will, it is Buffalo, so it's also very hard to count them out.
What battle are you most looking forward to when you're watching this matchup on Saturday night? Could it be, the defense versus Buffalo's offense, seeing how they adjust there? Is it Mitch Desnew back against his old rival? If Nick Rose plays, the old Nick Rose versus Mad Vince matchup?
No, I think Desnew and Bushi. Like
That's fair.
I think that's gonna be like Chris Bushi does not like to get pushed around. He will stand his ground. He's known to be a little bit fiery. Mitch Desnew, same. We already talked about it before. I could see the two of them just little shots all game, and maybe it leads to something else. It's going to be who can funnel that energy into something positive, because Mitch does have a tendency to sometimes try to do a little bit too much, and I think it comes from a good place. I think he just feels like he has the capabilities and the confidence to want to help his team. But sometimes he can leave the susceptible to a counterattack. And so I think he can also cause turnovers, though, and lead his team in transition, as we saw in the last game. And, I would love to talk to him. I think he probably would want that moment back where he kind of decided to go it alone in transition in the final minutes of Buffalo's last game. But again, he did the work to get there, and I'm not saying that he deserved a chance, but it's like he has the capability to be a game breaker, and they both have the capability to be pests. So I'd be interested to see how they fare in this game.
Yeah, that's probably going to be one that everybody's going to be paying close attention to. But just two more for you here. For the Rock to get the win, what needs to happen?
For the Rock to get the win, they have to exercise past demons. I think that as much as we're saying that this is a game for Buffalo to determine their mettle and determine the trajectory of their season, this is a checkpoint for Toronto to say, okay, are we who we think we are? Because as you talked about, PK, like they did this whole turnover. They brought in this entire youth movement. Like people forget about Hugh Kelleher on the back as well, who's been like a beast for them also. And I didn't even realize how big he was. And I'm like, wait, Hugh? So like, again, they've added a lot of parts in a lot of different places, but there still is that lingering, like Buffalo has your number feeling. So is this turnover and is this new vibe team finally moving on from that old narrative? And that's going to be something that's really telling, I think, for Toronto's trajectory for the rest of the season.
Last one, and like I've done for all these interviews, it has nothing to do with the guest or the sport, and it rotates every week, so the guests don't know what's coming. If you could develop one useless skill, what would it be and why?
What do you define as useless?
Well, for me, I came up with an example as well. I want to be able to cut a piece of wood or drywall or metal just one time and not have to go back to the saw 9 different times to try to get it perfectly to make it fit.
Oh, okay. That's not useless though. That's super, super useful.
That's yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Sorry. Not to brush I'm like, wait, that's really good.
How about cut it in half where it doesn't take me 9 tries, it takes me 4. That I guess that's
okay, like you're
skill.
chopping wood. Okay.
Yeah.
A useless skill. I mean, I would love to be able to just like dance like any style of dance. And I feel like that's kind of useless. Like bachata, no problem. Tango, I got you. I don't even know. Crumping, sure. Like Beyonce's backup dancer, like give me that. Like I guess
that's not
a
bad.
useless skill. Maybe like, you know, it'd be really good to have like really good knife skills in terms of like in the kitchen. Oh, you want a mirepoix? No problem. You want this fine dice? No problem. And I say it's useless because it's unnecessary for home cooking to be that diligent, but it would just make you feel like you could just like flex in front of guests if I ever had anyone over, which I don't.
That works because whenever I cut a cucumber, I always give the dogs the skins of it, and it takes probably like 5-10 minutes to cut up a cucumber for a salad. So yeah, that would be a.
Why are you
fun,
taking the skin
skill.
off? Why are you taking the skin off?
I don't eat the skin off cucumbers. The dogs eat it. They love it. I don't know. I never have. It's just
grow up.
I don't know.
That's child behavior. No crust, no skin.
Yeah, sound like my wife over here. But Ashley, thank you for joining us on the Buffalo Sports Collective. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you or anything else you want to plug for the listeners?
Yeah, for sure. You guys can find me on Instagram primarily at Ashley Docking, just my full name, Docking. And if you're a proponent of women's sports and you like to hear about stories of WNBA, PWHL, and WSL, or you know anyone that would, I do a podcast called Cinderella Stories. It's a weekly podcast, and you can also find us on Instagram.
I'll send that to my wife because she's a big Washington Spirit fan, I think their name is.
Trinity Rodman.
Yep. Yeah, she just goes, they traded my best player because they needed to be able to afford Trinity
her?
Rodman. Yep.
Yeah, because they just did the high performance player deal.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I'll would love to have her.
I'll let her know.
Sounds
but
good.
Thank you again for joining us on the BSC. Hope to talk to you down the road and continued success with everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
We will be back Monday for our normal episode to break down Bandits versus Rock. We'll talk to you all then.